Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Senator Rocky Adams, Senator Thayer, Senator Yates, Representative Bridges, Representative Frazier Gordon, Representative Grossberg,
Here.
Co-Chair Lewis,
Here.
and Chair West.
Here. We have a quorum. We are duly constituted to conduct business. First matter of business is approval of the minutes of the last meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, do we have a motion for approval? We have a motion. We have a second. Without objection, it is so ordered. Anyone have any announcements before we get started? Seeing none, please call the first regulation.
Council on Post-Secondary Education, Public Educational Institutions, 13 KAR 2120 and 2130, both emergency.
13-2120 emergency amends the funding model to distribute general fund appropriations for public universities in accordance with Senate Bill 191 from this past session to revise degree production allocations and weightings, increase small school adjustments, and add an adult learner earned credit hour premium. 13-130 amends provisions for general fund appropriations to Kentucky Community and Technical College systems in accordance with Senate Bill 191 from this past session to revise definitions, metrics, and weightings, reallocate the equity adjustment, and include a 3-year rolling average for data.
Would you please identify yourself for the record?
Yes, I'm Travis Powell, Senior Vice President and General Counsel at Council on Post-Secondary Education.
Sterling Creighton, attorney for the Kentucky Council on Post-Secondary Education.
Thank you so much. As stated, these are regulations just conforming to the implementation of the bill we passed during session. That is correct.
Yeah, correct. We captured all the changes there and met the deadline for filing. So these changes were applied to the distribution for this current year as directed by the Senate bill. So,
thank you so much. Any questions from any members? Seeing none, please call the next regulation. Thank you.
State Board of Elections, 31 KAR 210, emergency and ordinary. 31 KAR 341, ordinary and emergency. 31 KAR 431, emergency and ordinary. 31 4220, ordinary and emergency. 31 526, ordinary and emergency. 31 KAR 540, ordinary and emergency.
31 KR 2010 E&O amends to comply with House Bill 564 from the 2022 regular session and define the computer-based electronic file type program administrators shall share with the State Board of Elections so the agency can accurately update its election night reporting with the public. 31 KR 3041 E&O establishes the electronic voter registration system that allows a person to register or re-register to vote and update his or her voter registration information electronically. 31 KR 4031 E&O establishes, pursuant to House Bill 564 from the 2022 regular session, reporting requirements including procedure and forms used. 31 KR 4220 E&O establishes recount procedures. 31 KR 5026 E&O amends to ensure 2 mail-in absentee ballots cannot be issued at the same time with the same barcode or unique label if a voter requests a second mail-in absentee ballot. 31 KR 5040 E&O establishes required procedures if a voter's eligibility is questioned. The staff suggested amendments for both the E's and O's, amend various sections to comply with KRS Chapter 13A.
Would you please state your name for the record?
Afternoon, Taylor Brown, General Counsel for State Board of Elections.
Thank you so much. As stated, these ordinary and emergencies are attempting to carry out legislation passed by General Assembly. Do we have any questions from members for this gentleman? Senator, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm looking here, I realize that one of my colleagues pointed out that we have several people here to speak in opposition, and obviously that these regs were put into place to carry out legislation that was passed by the General Assembly. Were there issues in implementation of this that you see through the administration?
No, I think that everything went smoothly for the primary with the ease in place, and I think that one of the persons that might want to speak in opposition even said so at the hearing we held on the emergency regulations.
Senator Yates, if I could jump in, we do have someone signed up to speak in opposition, and I'm going to let them speak in just a second. Do you want to be like more specific about what particular regulation you're talking about?
I was just, since you're here to present, I thought that a lot of times that you could kind of give us an overview of if there was, because I
Sure.
know the implementation sometimes can be difficult based on what we pass.
Sure.
And so if you just said it went smooth and everybody's in agreement with it, I really don't have anything more specific other than if you see what is the controversy that's coming down the pike.
I would let the speaker
Fair enough.
address that. Yeah.
Okay. We do have some people signed up to speak in opposition, all from Jefferson County. So if the Jefferson County delegation would step forward, and if you don't mind moving to the side, slide over a little bit. Just pull the mics up, make sure the green light is on, state your name for the record, and then the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Frank Friday, Jefferson County Clerk's Office, Director of Government Affairs.
Mary Ellen Allen, Jefferson County Clerk's Office Election Center Co-Director.
Please proceed.
And members of the committee, we are primarily concerned about two of these. These regulations in general are pretty much housekeeping regulations, but there are two items that really would be quite a strain on the conduct and the operation of Jefferson County's elections and during our election, or what we'd have to do in the future. I just note generally, though, that this package of regulations are all issued not really in the spirit of KRS 13A 197 about each, if I may quote, each emergency regulation shall contain a statement of the nature of the emergency and be the reasons why an ordinary administrative regulation is not sufficient. If you look at your package of regulations, it's just pretty much a pro forma recitation that there's an election coming up. I don't think that's really in the spirit of giving you a real answer about why an emergency is needed and emergency regs are needed. Specifically, we're concerned about 31 KIR 4031 that requires election night reporting of write-in voting of candidates who are official write-in candidates. As you know, you have people can write in anything they want, but it only gets counted if it's an officially declared candidate who's registered with the Secretary of State or the county clerk. Going back on election night to find these people is just quite a chore. We estimate in Jefferson County we would need 2 people to do that, and it would take all night to do that. So that's usually a process where we sort through the legitimate write-in votes over the week following an election, and put that in a report for the state board. Things are already slow enough during election night, and taking care of everything needs to be taken care of. That's really we see as just an unnecessary burden on our limited clerk's office and what we can do for that in doing that. And there doesn't seem to be any compelling reason to have that done election night. Just a few votes for people who are going to be legitimate declared candidates.
So if you don't mind, there are 2 of these
Yeah.
that we're going to be discussing.
Yeah.
I would say that we just take them one at a time.
Okay.
Okay. So does anyone, before I open it up, I'll just ask my own question. So just to clarify what we're talking about, the new reg would mandate that you report who the write-in candidates were and the number of those votes for those candidates.
Yes, providing they were officially declared write-in candidates.
So it would require a vote tally, basically election night results for write-in candidates.
So in other words, you can't report any of the results unless you include that
Correct.
in your report.
Exactly.
So the way that happens now is you report the results, you report all that, but it comes later.
Correct.
Okay.
So under the statute, and for 20 years up until now, all counties report on an election night reporting system. Remember, it used to be COT, then it was an election night reporting system.
Yeah.
Now it's an in-house reporting system. So every county has voluntarily on election night reported all totals. We continue to do so. In Jefferson County, we have to get results on election night from 627 precincts in over 207 locations on election night. We will continue to do that. The problem is we don't count write-ins on election night. That would be a whole separate procedure. We do that in the days following. It is part of our certified vote totals. If we did have a statewide candidate or a federal candidate filed for write-in, it's usually just city candidates that file for write-ins, but of course you don't know until 10 days before the election whether you're going to have a write-in candidate, because that's the deadline for filing the declaration of intent. So you're basically holding up all of Jefferson County's results on election night in a presidential year. And I think that's an important thing to note. We are a large ship in Jefferson County, and to change a procedure in a presidential year when you had no issue with getting the results, it's just this one category, just seems like an undue burden and unnecessary, and certainly not an emergency.
So I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to immediately go to the Board of Elections. So is this, let's take the emergency ordinary thing out of it, out of the question. So is this a regulation from the Board of Elections, or is this a change mandated through a KRS that we passed?
It's not mandated by a KRS passed by
Okay,
the
okay.
legislature. But I would answer what was just said, that it's not consistent with what the vendor has reported to the State Board of Elections. It's not an onerous process that takes lots of time on election night. We're looking, well, give the perfect example. In Jefferson County, one of the colleagues here in the House, it's to be determined more fully by the Supreme Court, but she may have to mount a write-in campaign herself. And the State Board believes that, given what the vendor has told us, given the experience in 119 other counties, many of who do not have the staff that Jefferson has, that it's not an onerous process, and the voters deserve that. They've got every other result that night. Why can't they have that one? It's according to the vendors, it's not some go hunt through thousands of votes. The machines that are used now pick up. You have to be. We're not looking for Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, right? We're looking for the specific candidates that have already become eligible write-in candidates, and the machines are looking for that. We're not asking them to report every single, we always get the wild names for every election as write-ins. We're not looking for that. We're looking for the declared candidates.
So
But you have to look at any time anybody fills in and there is a write-in declared, you have to look at each ballot, even if you can't count it.
Yeah, can I add to what?
please proceed. Yes.
Yeah. If you remember your ballots, I think everyone's ballots are the same these days. You have a category for write-in and a little box you can check. If you check that box, and you can write in anyone you like. It may be an official write-in candidate or not. The machine won't know that. So basically, someone has to either go back and check the physical ballots, or as Mr. Branch is suggesting, there is software where you can take the pictures of the ballots and hunt through it that way, so you're looking at it through a screen. Either way, we calculate it's going to take all night for several people in Jefferson County, because even if there's just one official candidate, that box is going to get checked off and flag write-in votes. So we have to go back to every precinct that had write-in votes, and which will be a plenty, I'm sure, in a presidential year, and just check which ones are good or not. So we're we're not really saving much time either way that way.
And we have over 80 small cities in Jefferson County. That's really where you're going to see your write-ins. And so the way the reg is written, you're counting all of that before you can report your results, and again, in a presidential year.
So let's go back to Mr. Brown. So specifically, who are the vendors we're talking of that you're going off of?
ES&S is the vendor for Jefferson County.
ES&S.
Election software. What is it? Systems and software. Excuse me.
So hold on just a second. So the vendor sounds to me like the vendor is saying one thing and the county clerk is saying a different thing. Is that kind of where we're?
No, I not quite. I mean, with the current technology, instead of actually having to go into the ballot boxes and pull out the physical ballots. If we turn on the software that says take a picture on each machine, that'll get down. A picture of each ballot will get downloaded into one of the thumb drives that give us our tabulations, and we can look at those. So instead of collecting those boxes, it is a little faster process, but we would have a thumb drive for each election box or tabulating machine. Those will get inputted in one at a time to basically a laptop, and then one of our employees would look at that, would check every ballot that way. So instead of physically having to handle pieces of paper, they're checking through a screen. But it's still going to take a lot of time.
So does this kind of go against the legislation we passed a few years ago, where the machines are not to be connected to the internet, and would this kind of be an end around?
No, that wouldn't be the case, because you're using
you're taking a picture
physical thumb. Well, you are. Right now, a lot of counties do use the physical picture, and it's on the thumb drive. It's not on the internet, but there is a memory card or stick that has that information. But in Jefferson County, we kind of try to streamline things. But like I say, either way, using that card, that memory stick, to get pictures of the ballot to find these write-in candidates, that's still going to take a lot of time.
And I think it's deceiving. I don't think it's fair to say that we couldn't do it. And I think Frank, in his in your comments that you submitted, these are all things that we absolutely can do if given enough time to prepare. What we were not prepared to do is change our procedures. Again, we're a large county. We're already collecting sticks from 627 precincts on election night. We've never had issues doing it. It's not something we couldn't consider. It's just not something we want to implement in a presidential year and hold up all the other results. I did serve as an assistant attorney general for several years, where I represented both the Secretary of State's office and the State Board of Elections. I was general counsel to the Secretary of State and the State Board of Elections. I know those systems. They work, and that's something we can consider in the future. And with respect to the other administrative regulation, we can consider that as well in the future. It is not a change that we can make easily in Jefferson County, or should make in a presidential year.
And I would, if I may, there's been discussions about this back to last year. This is not anything new that the state board sprung on Jefferson County or any of the other counties. This has been in the works for some time. This is not.
But it was filed.
Now July. Oh, correct.
Well,
but it's been discussed.
No, I agree with Mr. Branch. Since the new machines have come in, the technology's got more bells and whistles, and we've understood for at least a year now they wanted to start implementing some of those things, but it's not that easy. So, and when we get the other regulations as well. The technology is not. There's still some issues, and like I say, we would not like to rush into this.
Senator Adams has a question.
Yeah, I guess more of a comment than a question. This doesn't seem to me to be an insurmountable challenge, because if this reg is not based on the KRS that we passed this last year, and you all are worried about the emergency component of this, why can't we just not make this regulation an emergency? Why can't we allow Jefferson County to have that time? Because I'll tell you what, if all of the Jefferson County results are delayed because of them not being able to understand and determine who the write-in candidates are until 4 a.m. or 10 a.m. the next morning, I mean, that's a problem for all of our candidates who are on the ballot in Jefferson County. That's a real problem. And
Senator, would you say it might be a problem for the whole state of Kentucky if we're trying to certify? There's a lot of people that live in Jefferson County, right? So
yeah.
it could flip.
So I'm just saying that maybe the emergency nature of this is what we fix, and then that allows Jefferson County to have some time to comply. But I'm just throwing that out there to the committee to consider.
So before we get to that and before you guys respond, I'm going to let Senator Yates ask his question.
I think that Senator from Jefferson just pretty much did it for me. And no, that's okay. That's we were kind of just back and forth a little bit on that. And my question is does it have to be an emergency? If you do the emergency, then you're going to require it to put it together very quickly. And Jefferson County having such a big block onto it potentially could help election results for the whole state, and I think that would be an issue. In the event that you guys weren't here testifying, maybe we could base it on this ESS, which I think is a system out of Florida that's contracted out, if I'm not wrong. Is that
Omaha.
Onto it? But if we're saying we're down the main power hub and we're worried that we're going to hold up the whole state in our results, I think we have to listen to you. So that was my comment and question.
Let's start with Jefferson County and then go to the Board of Elections if you want to comment on what they've stated. So.
Okay. Yes, we're very much open to modification and holding this off, especially we're going to get to the second regulation, but that would be, I think that's just really a thing of these technologies are complicated and it's just taking some time to implement this stuff. There's no election next year, and that breathing space is going to be quite welcome. And the maturity of these processes is something that just needs to happen.
So I got a question before we move on. So if we removed the emergency reg and kept the ordinary, would that fix your problem?
I think that would fix 90% of it. Now, that wouldn't go into effect for this fall election. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, if that's the correct. Yeah.
I guess our position is just, I don't understand what will change. The systems are set up already to operate this way. We're not talking hours and hours delay. We're like I said, the vendor has informed us. We've seen it in the other counties. It's not hours and hours. It would delay Jefferson County minutes, not hours.
Let me just speak to that quickly. For instance, we have 5 computers that we tabulate votes on. So our equipment isn't connected to the internet. No equipment is in Jefferson County, or in the state. So what comes back are election night results on a thumb drive. So on election night, while all the press is in your office, they're in our office, they're waiting for those results to come in from over 207 locations. And we have to get every single one of those sticks back before we can say, yes, these are all the results. Now, we either, again, you're taking that process that we already know very well, which is sometimes, we're waiting for 1 stick or 2 sticks or whatever because they're coming in from so many different locations. And while we train the election officers, sometimes they close down, they forget to get it. We're coordinating all that. And then on top of that, you're saying you're going to stop what you're doing. You're not going to report any